Wonderful evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to have the chance to talk to you. Can I just get a bit of temperature of the room? Who here actually is here because you are already an entrepreneur? Can I see that a bit? A couple of you. Who here is here because you are interested in being an entrepreneur? Show of hands. Okay, why is everyone else here? Just listening to the story? May I know, who of you is interested in cryptocurrencies or blockchain? Because that's the space I'm in. Okay, wow, quite a lot. May I know who prior to coming actually knew something about TenX or about what we do here at TenX, just so I get a bit. Okay, cool, awesome. What I want to do is I want to give a bit of a background story on my background on what we do at TenX, but then I want to share with you the 3 most important lessons that I feel we have had to undergo in the past 3 years since we kind of started TenX here in Singapore. Maybe really brief on what we do at TenX. At TenX, we want to make cryptocurrencies spendable. We work on a debit card where people can fund this card with cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, like Ether, and many others. And then you can go into any store and use this card just like you would use any other card that you would know right now, but this time you could spend cryptocurrencies. And I think what's a really important thing for any entrepreneur, and that's also always really important if you're interested in starting a company, when you try to start your company, don't start with the idea in mind that you want to do. Because what's going to happen is you're going to end up with a solution, but you might have an unlimited amount of problems to that solution. So a very simple example is, if I ask you question mark plus question mark equals 10, how many solutions do we have to this equation? An unlimited amount, right? Because we could fill in as many options that we want for the question marks. But if I tell you 5 plus 5 equals 10, it's a unique solution. So the question you need to start with always is the question, is the problem. So what problem are you actually solving? And we at TenX, we solve their problems of actually connecting these virtual currencies to the real world. Because this problem is really there. You can't use Bitcoin or Ether in the real world right now, and a currency by definition has to be able to be used. And so that's the problem we are solving. So whatever you're planning on doing, whatever you're trying to do, really start asking that question first. What is the question you want to solve? What's the problem that you really want to solve? And this is such a difficult question actually, because so many times when I judge at panels or when I talk to other founders, they can tell me very clearly on what's their pitch line, like we can make cryptocurrency spendable. But when I tell them what's the problem you're trying to solve, that's the major thing, because that's where you're going to find your users. And there might be also an interesting question on who are not going to be your users, right? Because that's also an interesting question that leads from there. My background is very different, as you have heard, and I had to learn all these things over the past years. I was a professional kite surfer for 10 years. I've been in sports my entire life. I've been in professional sports my entire life. And then my mom always told me, Julian, you need to do something for real. You can't be an athlete. That's not going to pay the bills. So I studied medicine. And since I was in sports, I said, I want to be a trauma surgeon. There's a lot of injuries in sports, so that I felt really connected to. And then I graduated in 2011. And that's now 7 years ago, and I felt miserable in working in a hospital. Suddenly all my freedom, all this stuff that I was used to in professional sports, creating and being open, was taken away from me. And suddenly there were all these rules and guidelines, and you had to do it this way and don't ask questions because this is what the medical procedures are. And I just didn't like this, and I was missing all this travel and freedom and being able to challenge and kind of disrupt the status quo. And medicine does not want you to disrupt the status quo, right? No patient wants to come in and say, oh yeah, let's try a new procedure just for you. No patient wants that, right? So being a rebel in medicine is not something that's quite good. So I moved to Hong Kong and I looked into really learning and understanding this entrepreneurial side. In 2014, in total coincidence, I met Toby, who became my co-founder later on in TenX. And that is something that is maybe the first really important lesson, other than always understand what problem you're solving. A key thing as an entrepreneur, it's really, really key, is your ability to network. It's really your ability to attract talent, you will always need people, you will never, if you think you can do it all, you're not a good entrepreneur. Because good entrepreneurs know that they can do a few things really, really, really well, and you're going to play these cards constantly. You're going to try to attract other people who are really good in doing all these other things. And so in 2014, I met Toby in Bangkok, complete coincidence, And I noticed that Toby was really, really good at strategy, and he was really, really good at security, and he was really, really good at developing. Excellent in these things. And I was really, really good at marketing, and I was really, really good at fundraising, and I was really, really good in communicating certain really complex ideas and complex concepts. And then we had Paul, who is the third co-founder, and he was just really, really good with product. He was really good with UX, he was really good with design, he had a very, very slick kind of feeling for all these things. And so this trio, and then we had Michael come on, who helped us really with the developing. This trio really each one played their strength, and I would never want to take over Toby's role, and I don't think Toby would want to take over my role, and I wouldn't want to take over Paul's role. This is a really important lesson. As an entrepreneur, if you think you have to do it all, you're going to lose. You need to have trustworthy people that you really love working with. And so be good at networking and keep a database of people that you know, especially from university. I mean, Toby and I basically went to the same school, and that's 25 years ago, 20 years ago. And a lot later, our path crossed again, right? So this is such an important concept. And then the first thing I did once we had some funds was I really kind of recruited all the good people that I'd ever met in life and tried to get these people into the company. And this is something that's very, very important to understand. So that was in 2014 we met. 2015 we started our company. Back then the company was still called 1Bit, on making Bitcoin spendable. So that was the initial kind of vision in 2015. We had no funding. We didn't need funding. Everyone just kind of paid, or we lived from what we had. We had basically three kind of core roles in all this. I focused more on the business side, Toby focused on the developing, Paul focused on the product. And then from there we just kind of worked. And the first thing was, and that's always really important, ask yourself if this problem that you're trying to solve, if it's just you that has this problem, or if there's other people who have this problem. And so many people then tell me, okay, but how am I going to find people who might have this problem as well? Well, if you can't do this at this stage, how are you going to do this later on when you actually might maybe have already invested time and energy into what you want to build, and you can't find customers then? So for us, this was quite straightforward. We went to the crypto community, which is quite easy. We had Reddit and we had all these forums. And so we posted there and we said, hey, listen, we are a Singaporean-based company. We are looking into creating this crypto debit card to make Bitcoin spendable. And we have a wait list. If you're interested, sign up. You could do this as well. This is like maybe a really, really basic kind of MVP, if you want to call it, right? So a good business always consists out of mainly two things. It has a product, it's an innovative product, and it has a good marketing communication side. The worst thing you can do is work on your product, but never have verification from the marketplace that is actually an interesting product. So as early as possible, test. Once you feel confident in just testing whether people like what you have to offer, right? If they have the same problem as you envision that they might have the same problem, right? So what we did was we posted this, and for us it was, if we have at least 100 signups, we're gonna go with this. Well, within a couple of hours, we had over 1,000 signups. So we knew, okay, this is definitely something that people want to have. They want to have this Bitcoin debit card. And from there, we started building, and we kind of started really rough, kind of growing from there, and everything was step by step. In 2016 then, so a year afterwards, we joined the PayPal incubator. That's also something I can highly recommend. Always try to network, be around other companies, get motivation, kind of get the same kind of culture and understand a lot of these things. So this was really, really valuable to us. And this was also the first time that we had our first outside investment. So we had a $100,000 investment from the outside, and that was pre-product. So we didn't have a product. So here the key is you really need to learn to raise money. And you just have to learn that. There's a couple of really great books that I can recommend. One is called How to Pitch Anything. A fantastic book, I think, good to read and understand how to pitch. You need to learn how to pitch your product, how to raise money. Great entrepreneurs, they are good at attracting people, like I mentioned. The second thing is raising money. And we raised even more money in 2017 when we became one of the largest ICOs actually in Asia, initial coin offerings, and we raised $80 million US. Now the key is this, right? We raised $80 million. Yes, we had customers, yes, we had a product, but we were leapfrogging compared to any other company back then doing an ICO. The other ICOs maybe raised $20 to $30 million, and we just leapfrog to $80 million. And just think about all this runway that we have with this money and all the possibilities that we can do, right? The scaling we can do. Back then, this was our team. We were like 8 people, 8 full-timers, right? And we paid everyone from the 100,000 that we had raised prior to that. And so the key is you really need to learn how to attract people, learn how to raise money. This is really, really important. And then the key is hiring, getting people on board, attracting people, working on your product and constantly testing, right? The reason I have 2 products on there is very simple. This is our product. You can download our app. You can try it out. It's called TenX, and you can play around with it. But then always remember, what makes a good business? 2 sides. It's the product and marketing. So another thing I thought about is, how can we get more customers natively into TenX? So I said, okay, we need more people to learn about TenX while they learn about crypto. So last year, I wrote a book called Cryptocurrencies Explained Simply, and this book shot up on #1 on Amazon because so many people cared about cryptocurrencies. We have a couple of books here, right? We can give out, I think we have like 15 books here, so I can give out a couple of books afterwards if you want. For those that prefer to read it on Kindle or as an audiobook, you can read this book if you want to learn about cryptocurrencies. But you need to learn how to build really, really good marketing funnels and marketing strategies. So that's really something that's key along the line. And even though in many areas you feel, man, I'm right, everything is going to work really well, here's the third really important lesson. Whenever you think you know what you're going to do, you have to be aware that you're going to make a lot of sacrifices in other areas. Be aware of this, because I meet so many people who want to be an entrepreneur and they want to achieve their goal, but they're not willing to make sacrifices. They're not willing on saying no to so many other things. Me coming to Singapore, I love Singapore, right? I really love to be here. But you know how many other things I had to give up in being in Singapore? I can't kite surf here in Singapore. Singapore, it's always really hot. So I sometimes miss the cold, I miss the snow, I miss the mountains that I'm used to in Europe. You know how many people I know in Austria who read about me in a newspaper or see me on TV and they're like, man, this is so cool what you're doing, this is so great, you know, this is fantastic. And I tell them, why don't you do this? Well, you know, I love to go skiing, I love to be in the mountains, I love to do this. Everyone has their thing that they don't want to give up. So what does this mean for your sport? What does this mean for other things? What does this mean for your holidays, for your traveling? What are the sacrifices you have to make to stick it through? Because this is what's really, 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 really important. And all of us, really all of us at TenX, we're quite a large team now, we are close to 60 people, we're really working hard and we're really pushing, and the key again is, it's not only what you want to do, it's being aware of what you have to give up in return. Because that's the price you have to pay, and there's a price to everything, to anything. So that is, I think, 3 key lessons that I want to leave you with. I think there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. Very simple, because it's never been that easy from a tech perspective. I think society, for the very first time, I still remember when I told people I became a doctor, I don't know how many likes I had on my Facebook post when I told them that I became a doctor and I had a job as a trauma surgeon. I think I had like, I don't know, 1,000 likes on that post. And when I told them I quit being a doctor because I want to be an entrepreneur, you know how few likes and how few stupid comments I had on, dude, don't do this, don't kill your career, you're messing up your life. Now, 7 years later or 6 years later, society has really changed. People are more open to this concept of entrepreneurship. Right? And the economy needs it as well, because owning your own business and taking charge for yourself is something that's, I think, as important as never before. So that's why I'm actually really excited you guys are here, that I get to be here and talk to you. That were my 3 stories that I wanted to share in this brief kind of intro. And yeah, let's open it up to some questions that you might have. Thank you.
Can we give a round of applause, please? Thank you, Dr.
Hi, my name is Graham Lee, and I'm just very curious in the whole cryptocurrency space. You didn't actually explain what kind of products you allow people to buy on your platform. Could you just give a few details on that?
Sure. I mean, basically, we don't allow people to buy anything on our platform. What we do is we're working on getting a debit card out. We had a card live for quite some time, and then we lost one of our partners, so we need to reissue all these cards right now. But this card is just like any Visa or MasterCard. So you can buy something on Amazon, online, offline, in any physical, any store. Just accept it like any other card. So what we are doing as a company is we're bridging basically the crypto to the fiat side so that the merchant, so let's say you go into a supermarket and you buy some groceries, that this grocery gets this store gets Singapore dollars, but from the user, he or she gets deducted Bitcoin from their wallet.
So how do you manage the price issue?
So we basically match the price what you could get on an exchange or what you could get on the open market, because we make our cut on the interchange. So that's how we offer the best price available to the user. That's what's this unique selling point, and that's what got us hundreds of thousands of users in a really, really fast time. Because it hit the point where people were like, okay, how can I use my crypto? How can it be flexible? How can I actually use Bitcoin? And yeah, I mean, I had some really great demos. I was with the IMF chef, Christine Lagarde, who was at that time still a bit skeptical on crypto. I mean, she's quite open to blockchain and all these things. And then I just said, you know what, let's just go to Starbucks and, you know, I pay a coffee with Bitcoin. She's like, you can do this? And I said, yeah, of course. So I bought a coffee at Starbucks, right, with Bitcoin, with our card. And that completely changed her perception on, I think, what this cryptocurrency actually can do. I think that's something that's really important. So that's what we do.
My name is Chris. Nice to meet you, Dr. Julian. One question, the first question will just be about TenX. So in this case, we see there's a lot of anticipation about TenX debit card. At the same time, there's also other competitors that are emerging, trying to roll out their own card with their own business model. Yep. And just recently, I came across a project. They are trying to turn existing debit card into cryptocurrency card.
Okay.
That's called digits. So in face of all this hurdles, regulation, and competition is coming in, what's your long-term strategy for TenX?
I think the first thing, and that's something I want to keep it also a bit general, right? I think the value should not only be on TenX. I am not someone who talks and tries to pitch or sell their own product. I think the most important thing is always to deliver value. So if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have any competition, you should seriously ask yourself a question. Why don't you have competition? Is it because you are insanely smart and you have been outthinking everyone else in the world and you're just so far ahead to everyone else? Unlikely. Or are you just blind, running into complete silly direction that has no serious solution, but you're just convinced that this is the right direction? So this is just something you really have to ask yourself, right? So when I'm, for example, a judge at pitches, and I ask companies, who's your competition? And they're like, man, we have no competition. That's really scary. I'm not kidding. That's something that should really get you to think. So don't be scared of competition. Actually embrace competition. Competition reinforces what you are doing, right? So it shows other people actually think there is a real problem in the marketplace. So you don't only have users that you tested this with or interest, you actually have other, hopefully quite smart people who have revalidated your idea and your thinking, right? So that's really, really important. So don't believe that no competition is a good thing. Any good company today or any excellent company has tons of competition, right? And has fears of competition. So that's the first thing I want to talk about, competition. So for us, I mean, obviously, of course, there's competition, right? We have other crypto companies who try to do the same thing. Everyone tries to do it a bit different, right? I think let's see who's going to be right in the long run. I think there's always these small differences. We have banks, we have very innovative banks, so there's it's a very competitive field, right? The finance industry is one of the most interesting fields to make money because you make money on a cut of transactions, right? So it's actually a very profitable industry if you do it right. The long-term strategy for us is, and that's where we try to distinguish ourselves, is to actually connect these cryptocurrencies directly through a network called COMIT. It's a cryptographically secure network that would allow transactions directly on these blockchains. We have a research lab that specifically focuses on understanding how this could work. This is a very long-term shot, so this is going to take 5, 6, 7 years, something we can afford to do because we have a short-term solution. Again, no one knows if we are right? And obviously, I hope we are, and we work really hard on it. But that would be my answer on the long-term vision there. Yeah.
I wanted to know more about the ICE initial coin offering. When you say that you have received the funding, what is the future plan? Are you trying to build a TenX complete ecosystem where you can buy currencies or purchase currency and put it in wallet and then use? or it's still the same model where you transfer your bitcoins from some other wallets and then spend it? So what's the...
I mean, the plan there definitely will be to have an entire ecosystem within TenX. One of the visions right now, obviously right now, TenX is this payment service provider. The future long-term, let's say 10 years, is to have similar like an Amazon model. Amazon started with selling books, right? So it was one vertical selling books. And Jeff Bezos has this really famous quote that says, I'm gonna sell books under the cost price until every American has heard about Amazon. So very interesting idea. So he's gonna focus on one vertical, get very, very popular in this vertical, and then he can start spread out. And today Amazon is an entire platform. So we at TenX, and that's one of the reasons we raised quite a large amount, because we feel we wanna have this long-term shot where we can be very aggressive in one specific vertical that's gonna help a very distinct problem, namely making crypto spendable, not having to worry as much about the funding short term and not having to worry about so much about being profitable short term, but really focus on user acquisition, on revenue, on these steps, so that then along the line we can spread out and we can become more of a platform in the ecosystem where hopefully our users, and hopefully 1 billion users in the future, can use our platform as access to this entire decentralized world. And that's exactly how you're describing it. That will be the long-term kind of vision, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the line. It's going to take some time, but yeah, that's the plan.
So my name is Stan. I'm also launching a startup right now, so I absolutely understand when you're talking about sacrificing. And the question that I have is, you went through major changes in your career. So you've been an athlete, then a doctor, now a cryptocurrency expert. And my question is, what was the motivation for you to drop your expertise? You were an expert in that field, and to start from zero, basically. What was the motivation, and what challenges you had, and how did you overcome them?
There's a couple of answers that I want to add there, and that's I want to put there. I think one of the things I've always had in life is this belief that you could learn anything if you put your mind to it, right? It's a growth mindset. So you either have this mindset of where you feel like it's kind of like this nativism where whatever is given to you at birth or whatever you learn in school, that's how much you're gonna go, and afterwards, there's not much more you can do afterwards, right? And I just always had this belief of a growth mindset that what's university, right? University is a great institution to learn certain skills, right? And I think what's really important at university is especially the networking and kind of get together with other people that also obviously want to do something in life, right? And kind of learn and grow from there and foster a great culture. But then afterwards, the question is, how can you grow beyond that? And what else? And if most universities take you 3 or 4 years to learn a lot of things, why couldn't you learn something new from scratch in 3 or 4 years, right? My crypto experience has been now 4 years, and I think, yeah, I might be one of the blockchain experts in the world globally, and hopefully I could become one of the top blockchain experts in the world. But compared to some others who have maybe 10 or 15 years experience in cryptography or something, I still have time to catch up. And at the end, it gets really, really hard to add these extra layers of percentages, right? It's a Pareto principle. At the beginning, it's very easy. You don't need much time to learn something new. So the key is you just have to be really, really open. That's the foundation to this. If you believe that you don't want to change, you prefer to stay in your comfort zone, I think that's the first limitation you're going to have. The easiest way to do it, and that's something that you should really ask yourself is, I think many personal development people always tell you, you shouldn't listen to other people, right? You should listen to your own opinion, you shouldn't listen to others. And I think, and I really did a lot of research on this and understand this, and I think it's really difficult not to listen to other people, because we as humans, by nature, are social kind of animals, if you want to call it, and so we care about the opinion of other people. But what you can influence is who these people are that you listen to. So what you should do is you should really evaluate carefully who are these people whose opinions you truly value. And you can influence that. You can influence that either like I did after medicine. I moved away from Austria and I moved to Hong Kong. So within an instant, I had completely new people around me, people who were interested in finance, in business, in entrepreneurship, and so that automatically influenced that. But you could do this even if you don't move. You could do this simply by writing down a list of people whose opinion you from now on value. So you could write down entrepreneurs or people that you really value, and you read this list every single day and you reinforce the opinions that these people share, so that you start really focusing on this group of people that you care about. Because otherwise, you're constantly going to be drawn to your old kind of field. And I had this with kite surfing, right? So kite surfing, switching to medicine, that was actually almost a harder switch than switching from medicine to entrepreneurship, because I didn't have a geographical movement as much. So I was still in the same town, and I still had these kite surfing friends, right, who were all hanging out on the beach, and they were just chilling, and all they wanted was to kite surf all day long. And I suddenly was this medical doctor who had to study and had to get stuff going, right? So I really had to learn how to go into this direction. So you need to associate yourself with these people. And this is something that I want to finish with in this question, and I give a long answer. As early as possible in your company, define the values that your company and all the team members should live by. And this is something that I see myself today actually in our company. Yes, I'm the president of the company and I'm the face of the company. What I'm actually doing is I'm making sure that the culture in the company stays just like Toby, Paul, and myself created that 2.5 years ago. What were these values that you as founders share, right? For us, this is trust, it's dedication, it's being data-driven, being good with feedback, having candor, and having a growth mindset. So it's these 5 core values, right? And so every company needs to have, many companies never establish core values, or wait too late, or don't focus on it. And if you have the right mindset, you actually attract constantly the same kind of people. And that's at the end, same kind of ticking people, right? So you don't want the same kind of people. You don't want to, you don't only want to have good marketers. That makes no sense. You need all these different areas. But the developers and all these people are at least made out of the same wood. Yeah, so that's, I think, really important. Let's go back to that woman. Yeah.
Okay, hi.
Oh, great.
Dr. Julian, hi, my name is Nisa, and I have a question. In the last 4 years, could you maybe explain what are your top regrets or mistakes that you have?
Okay, so I think I never have regrets on things that I do. I think that's really, really important. You either learn or you earn. So in anything that you do, and that's really, really important, and you need to understand that moving upwards, that's the only thing that you need to understand. So you don't have failures, you don't have, if you can call it a setback, that's okay, but you shouldn't. I think it's either a learning or an earning experience. So in the last 4 years, something that, honestly, there's nothing that I would do different. I think we did everything wrong and we did everything right? I think we learned from everything or we earned from everything. A couple of things that I might have, like, let's say I would have to undergo it again, or I would have to coach someone, I would have started using a hiring agency way earlier, especially at the beginning, when we didn't have an in-house recruiting system. So we raised all this money, and then we sat there and we tried to hire new people, but we didn't have the processes, right? We didn't have the interview questions. We didn't have hiring systems and so on. But the most important thing, right? You can do anything in the world if you have the right people, like literally, right? That's the most important thing. You need. Also, ask yourself this: who is most important to you as a company? Is it the customers? Is it the team members? Or is it the investors? Very essential question, right? Team members, investors, or customers? Here's the thing: there's no right answer. There's really no right answer. But I tell you, for us, it's the team members, right? So I prefer to lose a customer rather than to lose a team member, because I believe the right team members, we can just conquer the world, right? And this is really, really important. So you need to build this asset, and this asset is your team, and you need to treasure it, and you need to make sure the right people stay and the wrong people leave. And so what I would have done maybe different was in last June, July, start with a hiring agency straight afterwards, especially for the first 3-4 hires, instead of taking 2-3 months until we finally had these 2-3 hires. We could have done it a lot faster, and this doesn't sound like much, but this compounds, right? A week here, a week there, a month here, a month there, adds up. At the end, it's years. So this compounding, that's maybe something I would. Other than that, I think, look, I can tell you 20 lessons learned, 50 lessons learned, right? I learn every single day. But I think one of the things, right, what makes humans truly happy, right? And I think what makes truly happy is growth. It's personal growth, it's seeing something grow, it's this achievement of having earned something. That's why millionaires that win it in the lottery, they lose most of their money quite fast, right? Because they have never actually become a person who's worth $1 million. So I think it's this achievement, and looking back, it's so interesting. We have this picture. I should have brought this. I didn't bring it, but we have this picture where Toby, Paul, and myself sleep in, I don't know, a 50 square foot apartment. I don't know. It was such a small apartment, the three of us, right? All on the floor. We just had mattresses. We Airbnb'd. I think we paid, I don't know, $300 a month. And would I want to go through this again? No, but it was such an important experience, right? And I think that's the key thing, yeah.
Hi, Dr. Julian. My name is Brandon. I'm an SMU student. Thank you for sharing. It's really inspiring. So my question is actually on cryptocurrencies in general. So in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest barrier that has to be overcome for any cryptocurrency company or blockchain company before, let's say, like your platform can be more fully assimilated into our society, where we'll start to see like more and more people using it?
Great question. So what's the major hurdle to overcome? How could cryptocurrencies go to the masses? What would be needed? And I think it's actually the question I led with. It's if more people, more companies would lead with this question, what problem are we actually solving? And is this a real problem, or are we just creating a problem because we have a solution that we want to work on and we're just kind of faking a problem right now because otherwise there's nothing to give us a reason to work on? And this is a really legit question, right? I mean, this is ask yourself, what problem is Bitcoin solving in Singapore? I think it's a legit question. What problem is Bitcoin solving in Singapore? It's a super legit question. Do people here need Bitcoin? For what? They trust the Singapore dollar. The central government is doing a great job here. The banks, man, they're doing a great job. So why do we need Bitcoin? What problem is it solving? And that's the major problem. The problem is not clearly explaining what solution Bitcoin does. I tell you what Bitcoin's problem is, what the problem is that Bitcoin is solving. It's that of digital gold. It's having a reserve currency or reserve that everyone could escape into, just like gold, but you don't have to store it anywhere. It's in the cloud. It's completely decentralized. So instead of owning gold or storing gold, I just use Bitcoin as a reserve currency. I can travel anywhere. I don't have to drag it with me. If I wanted to, I can just remember 24 words, and I don't even need to store a paper anywhere. It's completely secure here in my brain, and it's basically a gold, digital gold. If you wanted to make digital gold, think about it. How would you make digital gold without having to trust anyone? You couldn't, because even if you go and say, I make gold and I put it in a safe, well, you still have to trust that bank and that safe. So actually, Bitcoin is the perfect digital gold. And that's the problem. And there's many people who have a need for digital gold, really, even in Singapore. And if people would explain it this way, it would completely change a lot of things. The major problem is people explain it as a currency that's supposed to be used for daily transactions. I personally don't believe that. I always talk about Bitcoin being way more a digital reserve currency, if you want to call it, on a global scale that doesn't need physical storage. And that's my opinion, right? And so that's what's really the big struggle. You can do this with any other project. What's the real problem you're actually solving? If you're decentralized, there's really interesting use cases, but what's the problem that a decentralized data storage is solving? There's companies who want to decentralize Dropbox. What's the problem that they are solving? Dropbox, Google Drive, all these things. I don't know. I'm not going to use it. I'm fine with Dropbox. I'm fine with Google Drive. Yeah, of course I need to trust them, but why should I? They're not doing anything to me. I'm fine. If they do have a data leak or they do some crap, I change to another provider. But why should I have a slower, more expensive solution that's not developed just to be decentralized because it's a cool word? That's the major problem, right? If you had a company, and that's something that interested me at the very beginning, let's say medicine, if you had a company that actually stored medical data decentralized, what this would allow every one of us is to store our own medical data on the blockchain, but we don't have to trust anyone. So no one could steal our medical data, no one had access to it, no insurance, no government, no one. But if I had this problem in the hospital in Innsbruck all the time, when we had people come in and they were injured, sometimes these poor patients couldn't talk because they were so injured. So I had no medical background on them. I didn't know did they have any allergic reactions to antibiotics. I didn't know what their history is. I don't know what they had done. It would be great if we could just go use their fingerprint, put it to a special scanner, and that fingerprint releases their data in the blockchain, and we would have access to it, but only because that patient is there and this person allows it to do. Very clear problem. How can I store medical data decentralized so that I am in charge and no one else? Very clear problem. Cannot be solved without blockchain. Can't. That's why it doesn't exist right now. So very, very clear problem. I think the major challenge is companies not being able to explain and formulate what's the problem that they are solving. And that would help a lot actually to cause more, because people can't, I mean, if I talk to someone in Singapore and I tell them, you could use Bitcoin to pay. Yeah, but why should I? I mean, I have my credit card and I can collect miles, so why should I? So our target audience, right, is people who believe that crypto will be the future. So they need to come in for whatever reason. So we're not going to try to convince non-crypto users to use our system. It's also always important. Ask yourself, who's your user, who's definitely not your user? Very important second question. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Julian, my name is Jason Ng. I'm with the Vina Capital Group. We are the leading fund management company headquartered in Vietnam, but I look after the Singapore office. So my question is, I've been approached by several groups that are interested in setting up blockchain, cryptocurrency funds, and I've proposed to my head office to work together, but they are always very skeptical that of the risk. Return always commensurate with the risk. Even when we try to open the bank account with the top 3 banks here, local banks, they can't do it, even at this point. And when we talk to lawyers, the lawyers are always saying that there are risks because the exchanges are unregulated, you don't know who the counterparties are and all that. So with all the risks surrounding this space, do you think it's too early for us to come in, or we've got to wait and monitor? Are you frustrated with all these risks and the evolution of it?
Excellent question. Look, is it too early with all this risk? I think that's something you have to define with your limited partners or with the investors that you have in your fund, right? How much risk-reward tolerance are they willing to take? I can share an example. We had investors a year ago that invested in a bridging kind of round, and they invested and they had safe notes, standard agreements for future equity, and we paid them out after a year 10x, so like we came true to our name, 10x of the originally invested amount, right? They took massive risk, but then they made 10x on their investment within 1 year, which is a great return on your money, right? And I think it comes down to the risk appetite that you have. I think it comes down to the same quote that Warren Buffett always uses, is he invests into the managers, right? He invests into the company, he invests into the people. He doesn't, of course he checks the numbers and he wants the facts, but what's 10 times more important is the team. So how much do you trust that team? How much do you know that team? How much research have you done? I think if you meet a really talented, great team that maybe have a great past track record or something, they're going into crypto, whoa, I think you can really mitigate a lot of the risk and there's huge market potential. But I think it always comes down to the team. I wouldn't listen much to what they are saying in their white paper. I wouldn't listen too much what their marketing material says. It's really about the team, because at the end, they're going to decide over a lot of things. And it's always a team that makes it or breaks it. So that's what I would do. And I think in crypto, if you have enough risk appetite, you can make a lot of money. You can lose a lot of money. That would be my kind of guess. I couldn't answer the question for you if the risk is okay. I think it's a risk-reward ratio, right? So yeah, great. Thank you. Take Margaret.
Margaret, yeah. Hi, my name is Margaret. Thank you so much for your wonderful share. I just wanted to hear your knowledge and experience on finding good venture capitalists to work with. Can you talk about that? Like, did you have a template of materials that you used to pitch, and just kind of talking about that process of finding the venture capital to work with?
So this is maybe the only part where I couldn't really give you good advice that's maybe replicable in a short term. Because what I can tell you is I always have a long-term strategy. And my long-term strategy over years was being around people where I knew they had money and where I knew they were open to these things, but not needing them for years, maybe even a decade. So I had people who invested into our company that I had known, they knew me when I graduated high school at 18, right? And then 12 years later, they invested into the company. So I would not be able to give you a good short-term solution simply because I'm not someone who likes to talk about theory. I love to share stories on what I went through, because I believe so much crap is shared out there because people just regurgitate what other people say, and since they've never gone through, they just regurgitate it because they have no clue if it's true. And the actual truth many times is completely different to what people think it is. And my tip is start early, start now, looking for funds, being around funds, meeting people. One of the rules I learned from many like talented and good institutional investors is that they want to see you several times along the way. So we had one fund with one of the owners of the ICH group, which is also part of Temasek. His name is Denny, and Denny wanted to see us he told us afterwards, he wanted to see us at least 3 times. And every single time he wanted to see an improvement to the other times. So he didn't want to see you once, he wanted to see you and draw a line and see where's this line pointing. Is this line pointing down? Is this line completely linear? Is there stuff happening? And obviously the longer you have, the easier it is to show where this line is pointing to. So I wouldn't be a good source right now. We might raise traditional funding in the future, we might, but then I might maybe have a good answer. Just right now I don't. I have more of an angel kind of approach rather than actual funds, yeah.
The gentleman behind.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Julian. My name is Amit. If I understood correctly, I understand that TenX basically is a debit card which helps us to buy goods and services. So my question is, as of today, what is the acceptability level among the merchants of this card?
It's just like your Visa or MasterCard. There's no difference.
So that means if I go to any shop, I can pay with that card. Correct. And they accept it?
Yeah. For them, it's no difference. They don't even see it. Yeah.
Central government is still, they say go for a fiat currency, and they're still not recognizing Bitcoin as a formal currency. Mm-hmm. So what can be done or should be done to give it more credibility?
You mean from regulators towards cryptocurrencies in general?
Right.
I mean, it starts with very small things. It starts with a pilot project right now that we are doing where we actually trying to show how you can track the source of funding on crypto well better than in fiat, right? Because a blockchain per definition is a transparent ledger unless you use some type of blockchain that doesn't have a transparent ledger. But most cryptocurrencies, except for maybe Zcash, Dash, and Monero, most of the others use a transparent ledger. So you can actually understand the source of the coins, where they're coming from. Most countries don't understand that yet. Regulators don't get that yet. Now they're starting to understand, and they're like, that's very interesting. So you mean I can track the source where these coins are coming from? It might actually be way better than fiat. So it's this not understanding, and since banks and financial regulators sit on a very high level from we own the world basically, and suddenly they would have to bow down to these fintech startups that they hadn't to do in centuries, right? I mean, this industry has not been disrupted, so suddenly they sit there and like, why would this new thing be better if this other thing has been working for so long? So it's this unfamiliarity, I think it's this learning. But look, Singapore is doing an excellent job in being open-minded to this, right? I'm amazed on how open Singapore to this decentralization, to this new technology is, because Singapore is a financial hub, right? So they understand they need to constantly reinvent themselves. They need to push the boundaries because they know that otherwise someone else is doing it. And so I think Singapore is actually a prime example, together maybe with Switzerland and maybe Japan and Australia. It's actually a couple of countries, but I think it's getting better, right? And I don't think you can expect something as important, because money is really important, right? As money to be just disrupted overnight. I think it's way too dangerous for regulators to just hop onto this new train. I think it would be reckless. And looking at Singapore, I think they're they're quite open, so yeah.
I just want to ask more about the initial ideation phase that, 2.5 years ago, especially when just now you're mentioning about competition, and when you don't see a lot of competition, then you could either be, you're a genius or you're facing the other, the wrong direction. So at the time, what makes you, how do you determine whether, you are on the right track, or it's something that is,
I think just what I shared. So define your MVP, your minimal viable product. Define it as early as you can and make it as lean, as minimal as possible, right? So for us, this was really only a JavaScript website. I'm not even sure it was JavaScript. I think it was maybe just a WordPress template. And all that was on there was what we want to do, make Bitcoin spendable. We defined the problem. Your Bitcoin is not spendable. That's why we want to make it spendable. How does it work? Download our wallet, order the card, and then spend it. And if you want to sign up for the wait list, sign up. And fill in your email address and your name and the country you're from. And then we posted that on, I think, Reddit, on Bitcoin Talk, and many other forums, and Twitter, and so on, and just looked what was going to be the response from the users. And our definition was, if we get at least 100 interested people, that for us is quite good. And we had over 1,000, I think we had 10,000 people in a few hours, right? So it was like, and there we knew, okay, we're onto something. Maybe the 10,000 people are not going to sign up for it afterwards, but maybe, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people, right? And that's a good start. So that's how we validated basically the idea. The key for you is, how can you validate your idea as fast as possible with the right information as possible, right? Because sometimes actually it makes sense to wait a bit until your product is a bit more finalized, or until you can actually ship out a product, because people might need to have the product in their hand. They need, I don't know what the product is or what you're doing, right? But if you actually have a physical product that people need to see, grab, see the functionality, then you might need to have some kind of prototype out. For us, because crypto is virtual anyways, it was quite easy to have only a virtual kind of thing. But to try to do this as fast as you can. And one of the major questions I always get is, how am I gonna get the first people that are interested in this? Well, if you don't know that yet, then it's good that you learn at this point, because if you wait longer, it's gonna get just harder, right? So the earlier you learn how to get your first interested people, the easier it is actually for you to validate, am I good at actually marketing? And is my product the right innovation? Yeah, so do this early. This is really, I don't think you should, there's a too late. I don't think there is. I think the earlier, the better in this actually.
Right, and the final question.
Last question? Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Julian.
Hey.
Thanks for sharing. So, as an entrepreneur, you face many setbacks. So recently for TenX, was the major partner Visa kind of pulling support for cryptocurrency companies. So how does TenX choose to view this problem, deal with this problem effectively, given that many users were affected?
Yeah, I mean, you always have this, right? Especially when you rely on a third party very, very significantly. It was not Visa. Visa is quite open actually to crypto. It was an issuer called Wavecrest in Europe who lost their license. I think obviously you just don't never stop. I think you just have to keep going and understand that setbacks are part of the game. I think always ask yourself, what can you learn out of this? The major thing we learned was to not rely on one partner on your core business. And this was something we'd done for way too long. So we should have way earlier diversified the business model, right? Big lesson, honestly, big lesson. I don't see this as a failure. I just see, okay, who cares? I mean, along the line, we're gonna get a new issuer, we get 3 new issuers, we get 5 new issuers, we're not gonna do it wrong. One thing that also came from that was that we are going for our own banking license, right? So it actually, you need to turn this weakness into a strength and just reframe it and learn from that. Never stop. I honestly, I think this setback, I still remember when we had literally no money in our accounts, 0, right? And we had to pay for our Airbnb. And we were like, how am I gonna pay for this, right? And it was like, I don't know, putting in some personal funds from somewhere and then hoping that we get the investor money or some prize money from somewhere afterwards. That was like sleepless nights, right? Right now you're like, okay, that's part of the game. I really think it's part of the game. Cool. Thank you so much for all these great questions.
Thank you, Dr. Julian.
Thank you.